Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragongate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragongate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. Fast to freedom. Dance tonight together. Hear everybody singing.你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for June 18th, 2024. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed on all podcast catchers and applications. You can follow us on Twitter X at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box to sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or reoccurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside, as always, Case Lowe. And Case, before hitting record, we've been talking about content consumption choices and essentially where our wrestling dollar kind of goes to. And I feel like that would be a good kind of place for us to kind of start this week, as I am watching the GLADE version and show for DDT from 2 weeks ago. Obviously not caring about my consumption habits. Case, I know you've put some more thought into this than I did.
In terms of not watching the GLADE DDT show, I did put more thought into that than you.
I mean, you've already, like, we were talking about what your consumption, what you're going to watch tonight. Like, and it was much more
no, that's right. We were talking about the CMLL YouTube subscriptions and how I feel like even though I'm on the cheapest tier, I really get my money's worth because I get high quality CMLL uploads, and I'm normally a little bit behind on that promotion, so it works out nicely. But on a week like this, where you have the Fantastica Mania show on Friday that won't go into the cheapy tier, and then you have the Coliseo show on Saturday with Zack Sabre Jr. and Hechicero, I feel like I get my money's worth when I subscribe to the Fan Leyenda tier and I pay the $35 for 1 month, and then I just go back down to the next month. So that's where my consumption comes in. I obviously pay for the Dragongate network. I'm paying for CMLL. For as much as I am enjoying Pro Wrestling Noah right now, and I enjoy All Japan when I catch up on it, you're not going to find me paying for those services at the moment. Maybe at some point I will, but right now I feel like I get my money's worth with CMLL.
And maybe like my sticker shock when I hear like the $35 fan Leyenda tier is just me thinking about like consumption and like wrestling fan purchasing like too many years behind, because I remember when New Japan and Stardom basically started doing those pay-per-views that were like $30 to like watch things immediately, and to me that sounded like such a awful deal, essentially like taking your hardest of the hardcores and like taking them over the coals to try to get more money out of it. But we've kind of seen now like this idea, especially like New Japan's like ancillary like pay-per-views, like that's their model going forward. And maybe that Leyenda at $35, even though it is like the most like objectively that is like the most stiff streaming service, and it's no longer a Dragongate network anymore, it does seem like that there's more of an appetite there, or more of an acceptance than maybe I anticipated a few years ago when things seemed like things were going this direction.
I mean, it's one of the many things that I think wrestling is woefully behind on. We had this conversation in the Voices of Wrestling Slack this past week because, myself and a few other people there have ties to the music industry, and anybody that follows the music industry right now in America at least knows that there's sort of a panic over one-time arena bands that are still booking arenas but not selling tickets anymore. And I do think society has become a little bit more well-informed and a little bit choosier, and they have made the call that outside of your 1% artist, they would much rather see an artist do an underplay in a theater, even a big theater, but a theater for multiple nights into a mini residency rather than one arena show. And I think we see this with AEW, and part of that might just be the fear of, it is true when you're AEW, you're constantly under attack, and if you start booking Hammerstein-sized venues, you're probably going to get called out on it, even if it's unfair. But you're sacrificing atmosphere now to run these half-full basketball arenas, and it's just another thing that wrestling is not pivoting from, and wrestling consumption is just as broken as anything else.
And it's kind of like this unique thing, like you talk about going down from these arenas, so you're going from essentially 8 to 13,000 to essentially this 5 to 8, I would say, maybe 5 being the top end for these like smaller shows, I guess. And I feel like, at least to me, it kind of exposes that there's not as many great 5,000 seat theaters in the country.
There's not. I mean, trust me, there's not.
And compare that to like when we were talking like 5 or 6 years ago, like, oh, Electric Ballroom, there's just no places like that in the United States, or like O2 Manchester, when we talk about like Progress really peaking when it did. And then there was always like a discussion about like, well, why aren't there like a similar thing happening in the US? And there's the overall discussion about like there's just not that many like 1,000-seat theaters that would rent to wrestling. And I kind of feel in a weird way, it's like, okay, Daly's Place, for as much as like that kind of became a thing, that only seated 5,000 people. And that does kind of seem like to be like a rare, unique thing. Like there's the Toyota Music Factory in Irving, which is like run by, I believe, the ARC group right now. And it's only 5,000 seats. And I keep on hearing more and more things happening in that amphitheater than happening at the 20,000 seat amphitheater in Fair Park. Like it does seem like that we are rapidly encountering things that specialization's just going to limit these venues, and wrestling, I feel like will fall more and more in line with that.
Yeah, I mean, I said this the last time we talked to Jake, as we started talking about music, but like the hottest venue in the Chicago music scene is this place called the Salt Shed. It holds 3,500 people, and bands that couldn't sell 2,500 tickets the last time they were in Chicago before this venue were built are now selling this place out because it's a place that people want to be at. And my natural instinct to zag when people zig, I wanted to hate this venue and make fun of people for it, and then every time I go there, I'm like, this place is incredible, and I know because I've spoken to the people that work there that they have an interest in running wrestling there. There was almost a wrestling show there last year around this time, and it just didn't work out, which thank goodness, because that would have been a bad look for the promotion that wanted to run there and the venue itself. It's a tad too small for AEW of any setup, but for an ROH pay-per-view, oh my God, it'd be perfect. For a Fantasticamania USA show or a New Japan show, it'd be perfect. The atmosphere would be unbelievable. But that's few and far between. That's so funny you brought up the UK discourse thing, because you're exactly right. When the UK indies boomed, there was this big discussion on, well, why are US indies running armories and UK indies running ballrooms? It's like, well, because it doesn't really exist in America, and if they do, they are so grossly overpriced. I mean, I think about the venue down the street from me, the Aragon Ballroom, which had boxing for years and ECW ran there, but I can't imagine how ungodly expensive it would be for a company of any size to run wrestling there. Now, it would just be impossible, and
just
so
the insurance.
Yes, exactly. No, it's not to factor in, and this is a very pro-union podcast, but union payments on venues like that in the city of Chicago compared to other places, it's all a nightmare, and wrestling is going to be the slowest to adapt out of any form of live entertainment. But it's why, I mean, look, does AEW have a problem selling tickets? Yes, they do. Do I think it means the death of AEW? No, I don't, because as somebody that does this for a living, everyone has trouble selling tickets right now, especially in basketball arenas.
Yeah, and that's kind of like where we have a lot more of in comparison to Europe, is just these multi-use arenas. It's actually funny enough, like it's almost as if any place that has a significant college has their own bodymaker arena, essentially. And with the idea that like that's a venue, like case, like I went to undergrad to one of the smallest NCAA Division I basketball schools, and the arena that they had a 3,000 seat basketball gym. It's just how that operates, and when you have 3,000 seats there, like trying to fill them in that area, it basically took like Steph Curry and Davidson to fill out that arena, like let alone whenever bands would come and play, was such like a just difficult prospect. And that's not even getting the fact that you would get into these places that when you like are talking about rental prices, probably at a certain point, that D arena and C arena, what's the real difference there? It might just be insurance and dealing with unions at one point.
An odd detour I was not expecting to take. Mike, let me throw a different question at you before we get to our main topic here.
Absolutely, please do.
As of this recording, we are essentially 1 month away from Kobe World. Your temperature check on Kobe on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your hype level for that show right now?
Well, like this kind of goes into like what we are talking about a little bit before recording. The fact that Dragongate no longer tapes their house shows and put them up on YouTube, I feel like that I've come down a little bit, just because like we are really 34 days from Kobe World, or not even that if we want to like count it out. I think it might actually be 31 days from Kobe World at this point. And I think that the fact that like there's all these things happening, like they had a show, they had their Okinawa fan tour this weekend, and that there was a significant build there between Yamato and BB Hulk. Like one of Kei Samai's favorite things to do is watch Yamato's Twitter account, especially recently, just because what he's firing off and how it's building up this world title match, this Open the Dreamgate match. But the fact that they have their schedule and the schedule hasn't changed is the fact that no longer now they are uploading stuff from every show. I feel like that the heat has to be turned down a little bit, even though I think that the 3 title matches that we have are still exceptionally strong and feel just as good about them as I felt about them last time we talked. I feel like that the changes within how Dragongate puts out their content, I don't know, unless you are one of the 150 people who travel to the Ryukyu Islands or showed up to the Okinawa shows. I don't know how you could be up right now when you should be like ramping up interest going into Kobe World, just because the fact that there's just nothing really to keep current on.
I'm with you. I have complained to everybody I have access to that works within Dragongate, including some people very high up in that company, and I'm distraught, quite frankly, over the cancellation of the YouTube uploads, because I really enjoyed them so much, and it helped me be on top of everything with this company. For the decade that I've been watching Dragongate, I felt most connected to it for the 2 years that we had these YouTube uploads, and now we're missing out on title matches because there's, a Dragongate match that we'll never see. And I'm missing out on Flamita matches when I really want to watch Flamita. And now I'm missing out on Mochizuki Jr. matches. And the thing sucks all the way around. But I do have just tremendous, tremendous hope for the 3 matches that are announced so far, that they could all end up being really great. And I maintain about a 7 out of 10 for my excitement right now for World. But with the YouTube uploads, I couldn't help but feel like it would be a 9 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10, because I like the direction this company is going. I like what they have laid out. I just want to be able to see it. I would like to be able to watch this company, and that has been taken away from us.
I think I'm probably at about that 7.5 right now, because I look at Ben and Yamato, and Yamato has been building up this match outside of just the shows themselves, even if it's a little bit of drunk Yamato tweeting. And that gets me pretty well up on it. And as well as the combinations we have in the Twingate, it just like ultimately, as you like laid out, the just absence of a content delivery strategy now on these shows. It's a unique thing. I mean, we had decades of not seeing these outside of bumpers, and we didn't know what we had. And now that we know what we're missing, I feel like it started to really kind of hurt. And I think that objectively, looking at how, at least internationally, how promotions kind of take off, a lot of it is free access, and having at least 2 or 3 matches up for free out of shows that people aren't going to access any other way just seems like it's been proven a success before. And pulling back on that, I think, is just so many steps in the wrong direction. I think the other aspect of this is that right now, Dragongate, just because their touring schedule is limited, that if we had these YouTubes, we would have more of a standard kind of show format for y'all this week. But this week we don't, because we're going to have a special topic case. The second annual Voices of Wrestling 30 for 30 under 30 poll being put on, headed up by Griffin Peltier, is going on. Everyone from the website is getting together and putting together our 30 best wrestlers under the age of 30. And we decided that we're going to probably be on our bullshit as much as possible for the remainder of this episode, just talking about probably what I think one of my favorite topics to talk to you about, Case, and that is young wrestlers and watching wrestlers kind of develop and change over their careers.
Yeah, we're going to do all the Dragon System guys. We're going to talk a little bit about Noah. We're going to talk a little bit about women's wrestling. We're going to talk about CMLL. And I don't want to reveal my full ballot because it's not all the way there yet. But by the end of this, I'll end up revealing 15 or 20 names that I'm voting for. Shout out to Griffin. This is a genius idea. I can't believe it took us so long to do this. And the exciting thing is that, the longer we do this, the more this list is going to change, because guys are going to age out of it. And that's just a great thing, the cutoff being age 30. And I look forward to having a deep archive of this as Voices of Wrestling continues. But as it is with any sort of list project like this or FSM 50, I feel like sometimes Dragongate guys get a little bit shortchanged. And for people that are on the website that haven't submitted a ballot, or for the people that are interested in this project, because it did garner a ton of buzz last year, and maybe want to know why some of these Dragongate guys are ranked the way that they are, whether that be too high, too low, or just right, hopefully this podcast can act as a bit of a guide for them.
Right, because we're not silly. Dragongate has that barrier of entry, but it is kind of the two sides of the coin. You have the barrier of the entry, but I feel like you're very similar to me at this. When I think about my ideal of how I want to see wrestling and wrestlers develop and producing the wrestling that I uniquely am most interested in. Dragongate is a company that I feel like really lends well to a poll like this. And at the very least, I did not do a ballot last year. I was a bad person. But this year, or at least a bad person trying to support the Dragon system. This year,
bad person. You had it right the first time.
but this year, I'll tell you this case. I have lost count how much Dragon System guys I have on the ballot this year.
Well, there's a lot. There's 16 guys that we're going to talk about here, 15 that we are definitely aware of their existence as being people under 30 years old, and then one that I'm not entirely sure. And I'm a little.
So should we talk about that guy just outright?
Let's go alphabetical. We'll get to Strong Machine J when we get to him, because I honestly don't know what to do with him. But let's go alphabetical here, and I'll say the name, and Mike, I'll kick it to you. Our first guy eligible for 30 under 30 this year, 25 years old, Daiki Yanagiuchi.
So Daiki did not even make a short list for me. I think that even at 25, he has 5 years left, and he could definitely end up being on this list in 2027 or 2028. But for where he's at, and the it's not that the 30 under 30 has a very strict rubric. I will read off what the parts that Griffin has indicated are the ones we keep in: wrestling skill, match quality, drawing ability, accomplishments, and potential. And if we take those as like 5 tools right there, the only 2 things that he really exceeds at are skill and potential at this point in time. And because of that, I just don't think he rates.
So that's a great point, and I apologize for glossing over the rubric here before we started listing off names, because I think that's something important to note. You know, for guys under the age of 30, I value their in-ring work and their potential more than anything else. Now, when you're talking about the difference between somebody who's in 5th place and somebody who's in 1st place, you especially have to factor in star power and things like that. But for the most part, I'm looking at, are these guys currently a good wrestler? Do I think they're going to get better? And what do I think their ceiling is as a star? And that is why, you know, especially with some of these Dragon System guys, I might seem high on them, but I happen to think they have a particular group of guys that could wind up being very, very big stars within Dragongate one day.
Yeah, I would say that making my list, I do probably hold quality and skill in a similar level. I look at them kind of in a same thing, other than quality within a match could be also a thing of being able to do a lot of different things. I would say, like, difference between wrestling a UT Lapis Hall match versus doing a 4-way 6-man tag. Like, there's difference in match quality. I do feel like I'm someone that's going to put a lot of weight towards accomplishments, at least under the age of 30, as how this kind of pans out for me. But I just, like, with where Daiki is at, just to kind of get back to him, I see a path forward for him to make a list on this in the future. But just from where he's at, I mean, just recently crossing over a year in wrestling, it's just hard to really compare him on a global scale in a manner that I feel like would represent him on this sort of level.
I have a bunch of notes for all these guys, and my first bullet point with Daiki is talk to me next year. I think this is somebody, somebody very realistically by 2025, I think could and probably should be on the ballot at this time next year. And look, had he been given the same timeline that Ryoya Tanaka, somebody who we'll talk about later, whose, spoiler alert, is on my list and should be on everybody's list. But, you know, if he had been given the Tanaka timeline and had joined a unit in November of this past year and was full-time on the road and wasn't just doing the Kanda, Genki, Don Fuji level opening matches, I think he's shown enough flashes and has shown enough potential to where, you know, common sense would tell you that he probably deserves to be on this list, but he hasn't been given the opportunity, and it's hard to weigh potential when we're waiting on the thing that will show the potential. So for Daiki, he is not going to be on my list, but I expect when we talk about him at this time next year, if everything goes right and he stays healthy and is in a unit, that he is somebody that could very easily find his way onto my 30 under 30, because I'm desperately waiting for him to break out. I want him to be in a unit. I want him to have featured singles matches and big tag matches and to wrestle after intermission. I feel like we're really close to at least getting a unit, and then once he gets a unit, those other dominoes will fall.
Right. It feels like that he is almost like to his detriment in this kind of evaluation, been stuck in that rookie phase and has not taken that second step. And at least for me, that really hurts you, at least potential on this, especially when you compare it with someone like Ryoya Tanaka, who I did definitely have a discussion with myself in my head about his position on the list. The next one you have on here, Dragon Dia, is someone that I find really fascinating and someone that like, kind of got an opportunity to break out a little bit more so than usual for a Dragon System wrestler, especially in recent eras with his appearance in Best of the Super Juniors. Dragon Dia, for the record, is 25 years old.
I had Dia at 21 last year, and I am struggling to find a place for him on this year's ballot, which is odd considering the fact that his profile has been raised. And I think within our bubble, whether it, be 10 or 20 or 30 or more fans, I don't think people are altering their, like we were talking about at the start of this podcast, they were altering their viewing habits to subscribe to the network to watch more Dragon Dia, but I do think he at least earned the respect of a lot of people on our bubble. I don't think he's gone backwards. I just think there are more names that are a little bit sexier than he is this year that I feel the need to justify their placement on the ballot, whereas Dia, he's 25, he could bounce back very easily. And I don't know. Is he super talented? Yes, he is. Am I a little bored of Dia? Also, yes, I am.
How much do we think circumstances kind of hurt Dia with this case? Because he was my last Dragon System person to make a cut. He was 28th. There's someone in the Dragon System I have lower than him on it, but I feel like a lot of the issues with Dragon Dia are very similar to trying to figure out where he was in Best of the Super Juniors, in that just because of circumstances, focus has been completely pulled from him. He still has the accomplishments. I mean, multiple time Brave Gate, Twin Gate, Triangle Gate champion already. It's just that when you look at where the focus has gone and where the limelight is in Dragon Gate, he's someone that when the focus is on Dragon Dia, the eating is good if you own Dragon Dia stock.
Yes.
But if it's a situation like this, I just feel like reactively he ends up on the bottom end of it, and it's almost it's a shame because I'm looking at people on my ballot that we will talk about later that have been on discussion here. Case, I have Hijo del Vikingo higher on my ballot than I do Dragon Dia. And that's pure circumstantial.
God, Vikingo, he's on mine, but man, I don't know. I did not want to vote for him, and I kind of had to talk myself into it because I'm a little bit lower on Vikingo than most people are, but then I think about the Omega match and his US TV potential, and I go, all right, well, I got to put him on there, even if I don't like him as much as other people do. Let me ask you this in relation to Dia and sort of where he fits, and I think, for the people that vote for him in this 20 to 30 range, do you have whether it's finalized or a rough draft, do you have a 1 through 30 blocked out at this point?
The way I do this is that I essentially have people into tiers, and on this one I did it 5 people, or 1 through 5, 6 through 10, and like this. And I have ways that they can go up and down. Dia will make my 30, but he is somewhere between 26 and 30 right now, just because for the sake of listing, I have him at 28.
Okay, so I don't know if you felt this or if anybody else putting together a ballot, whether it be officially for VOW or just somebody that wants to do this for fun, which I would encourage you to do because it's a really fun exercise. Again, I love that Griffin brought this to the site. But I found 1 through 10 this year to be painstaking to put together. It wasn't fun. It was a chore. I don't think there was a ton of depth there. I have guys in my top 10 that I go, is that really a top 10 guy? And then I look at it and I go, I guess they are. Whereas 15 through 30, I could build this list out to 15 through 45 or 50, and there's a ton of fun names. And this is really what's plaguing, I think, Japanese wrestling as a whole, is the top of the line is really, really shallow right now, but there's
like
bunch
4
of
names,
yeah,
basically.
but there's a bunch of fun stuff underneath, and
Exactly.
Dia falls victim to like, hey, if his year was a little bit better, he might not be 15th, he might be 10th. You know, there might be a giant shoot up the rankings for him, but he's in that bottom 10. And there's just guys, like I said earlier, you know, I'll use this phrase again. There's just guys that are sexier this year. You know, there's guys that I want to be sure get mentioned, and Dia's 25. I think, you know, if you go back in time, 2020, 2021, 2022, and then I voted for him in 2023 when the project existed, we would have him in our top 30 all of those years. I go back to the point.
Sure.
I don't think Dia's gotten worse. I just think there's a collection of really fun, you know, mid-carder to upper mid-card guys that I feel deserve a shout this year.
No, I think you're entirely I think that makes a lot of sense with that. And really for me, like when I like look at this kind of list, I think that this being left open to interpretation in a way allows us to kind of have like the great speculative kind of discussion and allow for a lot of at least ballot diversity, and that there are a lot of really fun cases there, including one that as this happened last year, I know that he that by kind of prestige he was mentioned but didn't necessarily end up doing so strong. He returns to Dragongate last month and reminds us that Flamita is a fantastic wrestler, and Flamita still under the age of 30. He is only 29.
Yeah, so I feel like the single biggest impact you and I are going to have on this ballot is that 2 weeks ago we reminded people that Flamita is only 29. He came into Dragongate when he was 19 years old, and he is disgustingly, disgustingly young. And Flamita was one of my last cuts last year. He would have been in my 30 to 40 range. Realistically, if I recall correctly, in my 30 to 35 range. But kind of like Dia, it was like, well, it's hard to band together and find the strength to vote for 2023 Flamita. 2024
Demonic
Flamita. Demonic Flamita, you're exactly right. And I was somebody that was pretty plugged into Big Lucha even at this time last year. But, I mean, 2024 Flamita, I'll make the argument because of the style of wrestling that he's done in Dragongate since his return a month ago, even if they're not exactly presented in the same way, I think Flamita has shown himself this year to be an upper tier TV wrestler. I think the matches that he's having in Dragongate could translate to American TV with the pacing and the length of them very, very easily. And this is somebody who I'm going to have, I think you're going to have, and I think a lot of people are going to have, even if it's in the bottom third, 20 to 30 type placement. I think Flamita's going to get some votes.
Yeah, he makes my late 20s, and it is really kind of the thing that takes me aback is that I start thinking about him, and it's like, oh, he's only ending up here. What if the last 5 years have been completely different for this guy? Like since 2019, I think you do this poll in 2015, 2016, and he's a top 10 wrestler. He just had like such a slide back, and a lot of that, I guess, is focus. A lot of that also his style changing and how he worked as a Rudo versus now returning as a Technico. I think he has, because of the nature of Lucha Libre and his career, that he has as much accomplishments that I would say that if you're talking about something accomplished before the age of 30 outside of your MJFs, he is just as decorated as anyone else on the list. He has just as many. I would say his accomplishments, they might not be one-to-one, but would you view him much more differently in that category than Mayu Yamashita in that manner? I don't. And I think that the only shame is that he will end up probably as like his only possible appearance on this as he will age out in the low 20s, when we all pretty much who have followed him for the last decade, we're like, oh man, there was a time that this guy was a top 10, 30 under 30 guy.
Yeah, I mean, 2014, he would have had some absurd placements, and he would have deserved them as well. I would put him, in terms of accomplishments, I think he's a second-tier accomplishment guy. You put MJF and Kiyomiya and Skywalker ahead of him, on a different level, but he's done a lot, and he's done a lot in a lot of different places, and he's been given this, I don't want to say second life, but maybe this third life, because you factor in Demonic Flamita as sort of a big pivotal career rebrand that he had. And now it's like, all right, I want to see the next 5 years of Flamita. What does that look like? Where is he wrestling? Is he somebody that's going to stay in Japan? Is North America going to come calling again? And is he going to try things in AAA for the billionth time and not have it work out because it's AAA? Is he going to, is he going to wind up in CMLL when CMLL is hot? Is he going to wind up in AEW? I think there's a lot of questions with him that I'm intrigued by, but the arrow is undoubtedly pointing up with Flamita right now, and I might have begrudgingly kept that arrow pointing up all these years, but I would say the average wrestling fan that knows who Flamita is from about 2018 onwards would say, oh man, he's just not the same as he once was, and that's not my argument. He definitely took a step back, even if I still enjoyed his work, but now, I mean, I will say over the last month, I've been astounded at the amount of people that have reached out to me to figure out what Flamita's doing in Dragongate, to check out, to ask to what matches to check out, and just the general excitement around this guy. It's really refreshing to see, and I think we're going to see that. I don't know if he'll end up making the overall list of 30 for Voices of Wrestling, just because I think everybody's going to vote for him in a really low place. I do think, however, like I said, he's going to wind up on a lot of ballots.
Yeah, and it's a interesting kind of comparison here. The person who I kind of look at, and I don't want to say he lucked into it because I do think he is a great wrestler, but I look at someone like Commander, who in a lot of ways comes from a similar vein. Maybe the style isn't exactly one-to-one, but I would say that his path into getting to AEW, that there's a couple of turns there that are completely different from Flamita, but the overall tune is not too dissimilar. And I go, oh, wow, this is something where we're watching this guy who, in a lot of ways, it's not that he was a reclamation project. He just, focus was pulled. COVID happens. The promotion he's attached with does not exist anymore. It changes indelibly. He has such a up and down history within Mexico. He just loses the opportunities that someone like Commander ended up having. And I look at this overall candidate list, and when I look at someone who had votes last year, I look at Commander, I go oh, I take Commander's not on my list. Flamita ends up being so. And I wonder how much of a point of comparison for people who look into Lucha Libre and Mexican wrestling, they have that sort of conversation internally.
Yeah, I never even thought about Commander. That's interesting. Not somebody I even considered. Somebody that I am considering, and I have in my notes here the phrase, the sentence, talk me into this. Mike Hyo is the next name at 27 years old.
All right, Hyo's my number 30. So,
okay.
You knew I was going to vanity vote for my boy.
I don't know if it's a vanity vote. That's the thing. I'm trying to figure out, and this is a separate discussion here on just the modern world and how the brain works and how media consumption works. But
sure,
it's gross to put together this list with the hopes that it ages really well, that 10 years from now it feels appropriate as much then as it will now. And I'm struggling with the idea of hey man, if I don't have Hyo in my 30 under 30 in 2024, is that going to look really dumb in 2025 and beyond? He's the most over new generation star Dragongate has right now. I would say outside of Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi and Yamato, he's the most over guy in the company. He's undoubtedly improved his in-ring work. He's had a number of great matches this year. I think you and I both feel like he's a smidgen away from reaching his apex, but that his apex hasn't been reached. All of these things should lead to me putting Hyo on my ballot, and I'm really struggling to do that. I don't have him in there right now.
I think the problem is that what would have been the effect? I don't think the age would have worked out for him, and I'm not going to try to Google search this. What if this existed in 2018 and if KZ qualified? I feel like that we are seeing a case that we would have encountered before, that I wonder in doing this as it relates especially to Japanese wrestling and the slow elevation out of rookie stage into something else. in Dragon System, you also have the fact that someone might transition out of rookie phase into being a lost post. And that's what essentially Hyo was as a wrestler, if not for like a character work standpoint for, I mean, really up until 2022 when SB Kento kind of moved into the heel orbit and the two of them got to work together in that regard. I think that he does not have a lot of the added intangibles or the match catalog because all of his best work, I would argue, has been done in the last 6 months, if not maybe some selections over the last 2 years. But other than the fact that we could say, oh yeah, Hyo has a 5-star match, no one's going to regard him as that high there because no one's going to remember, oh wait, Hyo was in RED versus Toryumon Generation. Like it's something that like we're dealing with someone who really, we are talking about this 6-month period, and if it does enough to merit him go to end up on people's ballots. Personally, for me, I think that there's enough there, and I would have probably tried to find a way, vanity-wise, to put him at 30 to begin with. Everything else, I think that there's not much more elevation because it's the overall question about business within Dragongate, I think, will be a sticking point for a lot of people. But I think for now, Hyo definitely, I look at him and I would view him a lot more positively as a candidate than, let me see, who we have on this list that I personally was like immediately like, I like Hyo as a candidate more than Master Wato. That's for sure.
Oh, well, I would hope so. Yeah.
I like Hyo more than Kaito Ishida, who I didn't vote for.
Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Okay, so here's where I think I'm at. So
Okay.
I have Flamita at 27. My number 28 we're going to talk about with a different group of names, and I feel very strongly that this person should be included. My number 29 and my number 30 are vanity picks. I feel more confident in my number 30. Now, it's a little bit like getting excited about a second-round pick in the NBA draft, where this guy could be Jokic. He could also be irrelevant in 2 years. That's where I'm at with my 30. Another name we'll talk about later. My 29 right now is Ryuya Matsufasu from Osaka Pro. And the more and more I think about it, for as much as I would like to rank him, I don't think I can seriously say that he is better than Hyo at any of the categories listed. And as much as it sucks, I think I am probably going to end up bumping him and putting Hyo at that 29 spot.
I think that you just have to remark the fact of how he is doing in the presence. If we were doing this poll 3 months from now, Case, we might be in a world where Hyo doesn't make this list. But I think that there's so much of
but
a
we could also,
there.
3 months from now, he could also be our number 15. You know, that's the weird thing.
Yeah, we're kind of in the middle of the ride.
Because
that makes it hard.
If this isn't his apex, if there's a rung for him to go up, then we're talking about like a real player, even in the depressed economy, within the economy of Japanese wrestling. I don't know if we're at his apex or not. It's a really weird time to vote for this guy specifically.
Yeah, instead of come back to us next year, come back with where Hyo's place is next year.
Yeah, talk to me after World, and I'll probably give you a different answer. But I think I've talked myself into Hyo. I think it's going to be silly with the year he's had and the amount of real estate that he's taken up, and rightfully so, on this show. I love the Osaka Pro kid. I think he's really good. I don't think he's better than Hyo, and I just had to vocalize that, and I think I'm pretty comfortable putting Hyo on my ballot now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when we get talk about people who did not make my ballot for out of the Dragon system. It was a lot easier sell for me to put Hyo on my ballot than Ryoya Tanaka. I'll put it that way.
Ooh, interesting. All right, let's talk about Ishin. He's 26. He was a slam dunk for me. I think Ishin is a bad case of he is working in the worst possible company to get the right kind of PR. I think the people that would love him the most are the people that fairly or unfairly hate Dragongate the most. But this is a guy who has improved leaps and bounds. I didn't consider voting for him last year. He is a guy I have in the bottom 10 right now. He's in my low 20s, if you will, specifically at 23 right now as I look at him. I think he's had a great year. I think he's figuring it out, and I think he has a ton of potential. And I think that potential could be realized in August, September, October. I think it could be a year from now, hopefully not any time longer than that. I think he's going to become a much more serious factor in the day-to-day of Dragongate.
And I think him regaining that will put that on the list for me. He did not make my list.
Really? Interesting.
He was my last Dragon System cut.
Okay.
There were other people and other promotions that made the list that there was someone who charmed me over Best of the Super Junior who made this list who would not have made my list if we did this 2 months ago. And I feel like uniquely the person he has to blame is Kosei Fujita.
Fujita was one of my last cuts. I understand that completely.
I'm all in on him.
I get it. I get it. If this was a 35 under 30, Fujita is right on that ballot.
And Ishin would be on it for me. And I think what hurts him is we look at that Bravegate run, and now that we have enough distance, did anything in that Bravegate run knock you dead in any sort of?
No, but I would argue he is an entirely different wrestler now than he was last November. It's like we're talking about two different people.
I think he came into form before that Tanaka defense. I think
like the Tanaka defense a lot. That was the highlight of it.
Okay, so I get what you're saying with that. I do think that he comes on and gets more of a focus and gets displayed better in this role, especially with the idea that I look at Z-Brats and I don't know what format it's going to be in by this time next year. And well, I don't think Z-Brats will be Z-Brats this time next year. And I think that this change will rocket ship him up my list, essentially. But Ishin, he was not my last cut, but he should blame Kosei Fujita for me.
24 years old, Jackie Kame, the next name on our list. What are we talking? Top 5, top 10? Where you got him, Mike?
I have him in my 10 to 15 tier, and right now he's at 14. And I feel pretty good about that.
Hold on. Let me panic here. Do I have him? I don't have... Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, no, he is... He's in my top 5. He's in my top 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So both of us are going to have like a wild boy top 5 candidate out of the Dragon System.
You said you had him where? Top 15? I'm sorry. I blacked out for a second because I thought I forgot to put him in my big list of 30, and that would have created a number of problems. You said top 15?
He is right now. He's in my 11 to 15 tier. Currently, he's put at 14.
Okay. I'm gonna give the floor to you for a second because this has been your Babe Ruth prospect. You know, you called your shot on this from his debut match onwards. For anybody that is in this project or interested in this project, that is maybe listening to this because we're doing a 30 under 30, not because they like Dragongate, give them the elevator pitch on Jackie Kame.
Jackie Kame is what happens when someone already pretty talented gets to understudy under some of the best baby faces of his generation for 24 months and then is able to package that with a ability to connect with an audience that has only started to get captured right now. Where Jackie Kame is as of this time of recording is not where he is going to be this time next year or this time in a month. He is someone that for his size and the style of wrestling he does, I think he calls into conversation some of the better baby faces in peril of his generation. I'm not saying that he is playing he's not playing Ricky here, but he does such a strong job of that, and he couples that with a crowd attachment that uniquely within the Dragon system is going to only pay off for this guy deeper his career gets. He is someone who has only been able to react to where he's put in the scenario. In case when you put him at the plate and you give him the baseball bat and you say, hey, bases loaded, and it's bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, who is the one person in Dragongate, maybe outside of Shun Skywalker, who you can rely upon the most? It's been Jack Kamei for the last 24 months.
You tell me if this is an outrageous comparison to make. Is Kamei the closest thing we have in wrestling to the answer of the question, what if Ricky Morton and Rey Mysterio Jr. had a kid?
That's the comp, really. It really is, because, like, it's not that he is the otherworldly flyer, and it's not that you have teenagers crawling over themselves in the Sportatorium case. What we have is kind of someone who's taken all aspects of that and have created, like, the perfect babyface in peril for the Zoomer age.
Last year, 2023, I had 11 Kame matches at 4 stars or higher. 6 months into 2024, I have 13 Kame matches at 4 stars or higher, with 4 of those being at 4.5 stars. Actually, 5 of those being at 4.5 stars, plus the Dead or Alive cage match, which I had at 4.25. I don't think we've seen him reach his apex as an in-ring performer. I don't think we've seen him reach his apex as a star. I don't feel like he is anywhere near where he is going to end up. Now, with his size and with his build and with the way that he wrestles, I don't know if that in-game is Open the Dreamgate champion, but Dragon Kid also never won the Open the Dreamgate championship, and we don't look, lesser of Dragon Kid for that reason. So I don't think you could have Kame high enough. I will end up being the high vote on him, I would imagine, because, quite honestly, I'm trying to figure out if he should be one step ahead or one step below of Konosuke Takeshita. And that might sound utterly ridiculous to some people, but I've watched every match that Kame's had on tape, and I feel very, very confident in my assessment of his career up to this point.
And the issues that Kame is going to have are going to be unique to the fact that it's what happens when a Dragongate wrestler, who they play on the fact that he's such a cutie pie, what happens when he's no longer a young man case. Like, that's going to be like the barrier for that's going to be the hard ceiling for him, is this guy going to be handsome when he's no longer boyish? That's going to be the problem with him in this company. And I think that he shows enough creativity and enough inherent charisma that might not be so much of a problem. But it is, like, the unique, like, downside about him is it's not that we worry really about his size, because as you rightly pointed out, Dragon Kid, there are thousands of pro wrestlers who wish they had Dragon Kid's career, even though he never won the world title. It's just, like, uniquely, how is he going to age? Like, that will be the thing, other than, of course, like, health and conduct that have him kind of fixed on this list. Like, if it turns out that he loses all of his hair and it just looks kind of awkward as someone in their late 20s, that's going to be his worst possible future, I feel like.
Mike, can I hit you with the breaking news that the baseball world has unfortunately lost Willie Mays?
That sucks.
It does. It really does. I got to be honest, I thought he died like 10 years ago. I'm stunned to hear that Willie Mays was alive, and saddened to hear that he has passed.
Yeah, that stinks so much. Oh, he was 93. Gosh, to live the life he lived and to live it as long as he did.
I remember he looked great at the 2007 All-Star game in San Francisco. That was like the first All-Star game I was really, really into. It's where Ichiro hits the inside the park home run. There's a great home run derby. That's just that is like apex MLB All-Star weekend in my mind. And I mean, Mays looked healthy then, and obviously they made a big deal out of him being there. But pour one out for Willie Mays.
Yes, so I was wondering because I know that you kind of keep up with baseball with this. They've been doing such a big thing with the Negro League and Rickwood Field baseball.
Yeah.
That's the home of the Birmingham Black Barons. I've been trying to think like, oh, where's Willie? Because Willie played for this team, like because Roy Wood Jr. has been doing a great podcast about like Negro League history, and he's been kind of at the forefront since he's from Birmingham. And that was something that was kind of ringing out. It's like I was seeing like these figures, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, Willie played for the Birmingham Black Barons. He played at Rickwood Field, and I was wondering what was up. And man, what a bummer.
There you go. Well, sorry to drop that on you in the midst of a Jackie Kame discussion. I have said my piece on Kame. Do you have anything else to add?
Only. What are your thoughts about him like aging weird? Because I feel like that is his unique barrier for how does he look like on this list in 2029.
So, for the first, I would say 2 full years of his career, my comparison was that he was this generation's Genki Horiguchi, and I still inherently think that's true, but I think his ceiling is going to be so much more higher than Genki's ever was. And I am personally, like, Genki's one of my favorite wrestlers ever, but I don't enjoy Real Hazard era Genki. I think Kame has all of the potential in the world to have a Real Hazard-like over-the-top heel character and have it deliver. And that is going to be his out when he ages, is the eventual, and he's 24 now. I don't think we'll get to this turn until he's 32, but the eventual Kame heel turn, if he sticks the landing on that, then you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, like that is uniquely the thing is like Genki and Real Hazard. Kids, look that up yourself. Don't look it up before you need to go to bed. That was the first Dragongate wrestler I met was or I got to see at a show was Real Hazard era Genki Horiguchi, who was really nice when I said like I really enjoyed your match, as he was like completely like having the contacts still and with like the rave braids in his hair. And it was just like that's a wild thing. Well, okay, someone who might be on the precipice of a heel turn, but also is living Genki's reality of being real bald right now. Kota Minoura, he's 25. He is, I think, when we look at Dragon System prospects as it relates to youth, he was always the one we always kind of fingered as the one that's like, oh yeah, he's so young, it's going to work out all right. It's going to work out all right for him. I did not realize until you gave me this list that Minoura was already 25.
Last year, I had Coach Minoura at number 12 on my ballot. Mike, I can't do it this year. I don't see a place for him. There's too many unanswered questions, despite the fact that, there's always so much noise around Minoura that it distracts us from the fact that he is a legitimately great pro wrestler. I don't know. I don't think I can do it. I think the potential of Ishin and the potential of Tanaka and the outright greatness already of somebody like Kikuta or Skywalker, or the combination of being great already and having just the world of potential in Mochizuki Jr., I can't do it. Am I crazy?
Well, did not realize that I would be the high voter on Kota Minoura on this show. I have him on the tier, and I think this is very fitting. Jamie Hayter and Daniel Garcia.
Okay, I have Garcia at 13, and I actually do not have Jamie Hayter on my ballot, which I know is controversial, but I stand by my decision.
So this is the late teens, early 20s. It goes Hayter, 18, Minoura, 19, Atlantis Jr., 20,
okay,
and then Daniel Garcia, 21. Just gave you a sense of things.
I don't know. I
get your point. I think that it's tough with Kota Minoura. They might have fucked him.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Is that
well, we're just gonna be frank here. They might have T-Hawked Kota Minoura.
And at this time last year, we were cautiously approaching the Kota Minoura Wrestling Retribution project. And he won King of Gate, and it felt like all of this tension had been relieved. And I think that tension is gone, but they might have fucked him. And I can't get over that. And I'm unsure, if I was going to give all of the things on the rubric a score of 1 to 10, under potential, I would just put 3 giant question marks. I would have no idea how to analyze that. So I'm going to leave him off this year. I think he's a great wrestler, but there's a lot of other guys, you know, some CMLL guys and some Dragon System guys and some AEW guys that I am just much more confident in when it comes to voting for them.
Yeah, no, I think you're entirely justified. I think he just has too much accomplishments for me to leave him completely out in the cold right now. Someone who has accomplishments and uniquely younger than Kota Minoura, but you would not actually realize this looking at them face to face. But Doka Kakuta, he make your list?
Oh God, yeah. No, I have Kakuta hovering around my top 10 right now, maybe my number 10 spot by the time things are done. Don't look, the Dreamgate run was not what anybody wanted. I still put that more so on the booking and the way that he was handled and his overall performance, although, you know, great champions rise to the occasion. But oh my God, I mean, he's a great match machine. I think he's going to be back on the top of the mountain at some point before he turns 30, and I think that's going to go much better than his first go-around did. I am all in on Kakuta. Don't let people tell you otherwise.
I think that I have him at 15 right now.
That feels like a healthy spot.
Yeah, I don't see him getting much higher, and I can't putting him much lower. It puts him in the range of uniquely. Jackie Kamei is one spot ahead of him, and I feel very strongly that I would vote Kamei higher than Kakuta, and I feel righteous about it. I think with Kakuta, it kind of boils down to, do we think that they will, or that he will be able to get the ball back before he turns 30, and they will give him another concerted effort? Because it was not a failure, but it was not the kind of run that makes me think that they're going to revisit it anytime soon.
No, I think you got to go through 2 or 3 more Dreamgate champions before he's even back in contention. I don't even think he'd be a great Dreamgate challenger right now. I think we're all still sort of feeling the aftershocks of his Dreamgate run, but it's not over for him, and don't be fooled in thinking otherwise.
Someone that it's not over for, the only person other than Ishin listed at officially 26. Minorita, I'll take Minorita first.
Please.
Did not make my list. Would have been in my 36 to 40 range. Just missed time and missed so much time that it dropped him out there. I fully anticipate seeing how he is since he returned. I anticipate him making my 30 under 30 next year, but just not this.
Last year when we voted, it felt like Minorita PR was at an all-time high. There were a lot of people that were in the midst of doing the thing where it's like, hey, you know who really should have been Rookie of the Year in 2022? Not Takuma Fujiwara, should have been Minorita, and I never bought into that. But his PR was at an all-time high last year at this time, rightfully so. I had him at 24, but I am not going to vote for Minorita this year.
Yeah, it's just... I think that we need to see time for him, and the more time he gets, the higher he gets back onto that. I'm ready to lead that banner, much like I'm leading the banner for this guy. Mochizuki Jr., 22 years old. Case, I want you to take him first. Where are you thinking Mochizuki's going to land?
I mean, he should be a top 10 guy, right?
All right, so top 10. That's fair. That's fair.
Here's where I'm at with him. Last year I had him at 11.
Fair.
I think this year I'm going to have him at 11 as well. The guy. Look, I've said it on this podcast before. The single biggest whiff right now among tastemakers in wrestling is that they aren't widely identifying him as a prodigy. And
that's what he is.
I just don't get it. He's great at everything, and his last name is Mochizuki. He's going to be a humongous star as long as his legs or arms don't fall off. He is a guy who is a great wrestler, not a good wrestler who will be great. He is a great wrestler. He is somebody who, as I've said 100 times on this show before, he debuted in June of 2022. As long as he has been healthy, they have never quote unquote cycled him down. He has always been given something to do as long as he's been healthy, which would identify that he is a star in the making, and his potential is 3-time Dreamgate champion, 4-time Dreamgate champion. He's going to be a humongous star. And I feel like everybody is whiffing on it that is normally on top of these things.
Case, let me tell you wrestlers I have, and I will argue to the end of the earth, lower than Mochizuki Jr.
Okay.
Just Konosuke Takeshita, I have lower on my list than Mochizuki Jr.
I felt a number of people's eyes involuntarily twitch when you said that, but I like where you're going. Go ahead.
Miyu Yamashita.
Okay, I can't comment a ton, but I'm into the spirit of it.
Azumi.
Okay, again, a lot of people on Reddit are very upset with you.
That's why you need me in voting here for this.
No,
Shota Umino, much lower than Mochizuki Jr.
Umino's out of my top 30. I mean, come on.
I have only 4 people higher than Mochizuki Jr. on my list, and there are 4 people that I cannot even in my wildest mind argue Mochizuki has a much more of a under 30K set. One of them is Shun Skywalker. The other is Kaito Kiyomiya. The third is MJF. The 4 is Utami Hayashishita.
And then you've got Junior there?
Then Junior's number 5.
I love it. I don't know. I'm right there with you. I get it.
There is no one in wrestling over the entirety of their career to date who has had as much of give me the ball, I'm going to score all the touchdowns possible as Mochizuki Jr. has. He has the ability, as you said, whenever he's already accomplishments. He's already been a champion, but he was a champion before he turned 20.
That's right.
He was a champion before he was legally an adult in Japan. And he has been a draw since he debuted, and a significant enough draw to the point that you know that they would, if there was not anything with this kid, they would not have had him go off on excursion the way he did and immediately come back and say, hey, I'm going to go kick my dad's ass. And I think in a lot of ways, if you are someone who has not given Mochizuki Jr. the proper shake he has and he has deserved, June 5th, turn on the Dragongate network, because Masaki Mochizuki for Mochizuki Jr. will prove that this guy is ready to kind of take on the world and grab it from both hands. And the fact that he has not been around and not been highlighted because of excursion has actually, I think, in a way has hurt some of the big collaborative shows. I feel like Mochizuki Jr. should be the one out there waving the flag, because he will be the one in this company. As you said, 3-time Dreamgate champion. I have an expectation that tops out that he should be able to try to rival his dad's legacy. And I think that he is someone that I have all the confidence that he should be able to. At 22, I fully expect that he will be in the top 10 of this list, barring some grave catastrophe for the next 7.
I mean, Junior is, we should be talking about him the way that we talk about Bronny James, but Junior's actually good. That's where we're at with this, is he is the second coming, and his father is, if not the greatest Dragongate wrestler of all time, the second greatest Dragongate wrestler of all time. And I think you and I both feel comfortable going, well, Junior could do that too. He could bump his dad to 3. I mean, that's where we're at with this guy.
And it is a situation with someone, Case, that I look at Shingo Takagi and his father as kind of unmovable in their positions in the overall Dragon System Mount Rushmore. This guy is the hottest prospect this company has had perhaps ever, I feel like. I mean, for as much as buzz as Strong Machine J got for the press conference, or in the fact that the Yahashi brothers were built up being wrestling's first purebreds, being the first wrestlers of both a mother and father, being a pro wrestler in Japan, I think the fact that they just dropped the most powerful weapon on us and being, hey, the best in-ring wrestler in this company's history, yeah, here's his son, and he is here, and other than perhaps like the first 6 weeks, Case, Mochizuki Jr. hasn't made a wrong step in any sort of fashion. It's just been forward as long as the kid's been healthy.
I'm completely with you. Somebody else, possibly the person that will turn into his generational rival, 25 years old, so older than Junior, but he just debuted last May, Ryoya Tanaka. I have him on my ballot. I have him right now at 21. And I feel very confident that over the next 4 years, 21 will be the lowest that he ranks on my ballot.
All right. Did not make mine. Sell me on why he should have gotten it versus just because I have him there. Him versus Dragon Dia. I feel like in a lot of ways you have people who are a little bit higher up, at least for Dragongate, that made it. I just couldn't make the connection. What was your thought process here? Like, not discounting you, of course.
No. I mean, I think Tanaka has a higher ceiling than Dia does. I think his work has been more exciting over the last 6 months than Dia has. And I think while Dia has the equity built in with this crowd, if I was going to the Okinawa shows and I was stopping at the D-Courage merch table and I'm buying, a supportive towel, I'm skipping over Dia and I'm skipping over probably Kakuta and I'm buying the Tanaka towel because I feel like he's the hot guy in that unit right now. He's the only reason that we have anything to say about D-Courage ever, and part of that might just be that they're in a holding pattern until Yoshioka gets back. Part of that might be that they have surpassed the need to exist thanks to Big Hug, which is not a knock on D-Courage. We just have a new super babyface unit. But Tanaka is the guy that's keeping that unit chugging along. I think he's a natural. I mean, another one of these guys who debuted, and Dragongate has this ability, where one match in we go, oh, they could be something. And the interesting thing with Tanaka, how many times have I talked about how in a lot of Japanese wrestling promotions, it's, being the young boy is the hard part because they're going to beat the soul out of you and they're going to beat you up physically for years and years and years. With Dragongate, it is not the first act of your career that is hard. It is what you do when you advance past the young boy stage that is really difficult. With Tanaka, I mean, they put him in D-Courage, and if you didn't know any better, you would think he's a 5-year pro based off his first night in D-Courage. I just think he is passing every checkmark with flying colors, and quite honestly, I'm shocked he's not on your list.
I think that for me, with him, it is just the accomplishments, and it's only 12 months. And maybe for some other people, like I look at some people like where I would slot him in. I think that him or Nick Wayne, do I feel more strongly should be on a 30 for 30 list? And maybe Nick Wayne should have been the cut, and I should put Tanaka in there for him.
I feel like they're super similar, and I feel like they both should be on there.
I mean, like, that's the difficulty with these sorts of polls. Like, I also feel like in the same way, I probably have Yuki Ueno on my list way higher than you do at the same time.
Well, if he's on your list, then yes, he is higher than he is on my list. Even though right. I like him, but I didn't. He's not there for me. 22 years old. I did not realize he was this young. Ryofuda. I'll go first here. I love the guy. I wish him the best. He is not on my list.
He's got 7 more years to make the list.
Yep. And if it's not even if everything went right, if for once in Fuda's life, if everything didn't go crushingly wrong, he has the talent to make the list.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's just the Ryu Fuda conversation just now taken for a macro perspective. And hopefully he gets the momentum in the company to do so, or if not, he's able to find his place because he definitely has the talent there to make it, at least in my books. After Fuda, well, it's Shun Skywalker Case. Is Shun Skywalker your number one person on this list?
He was my number one last year. He'll be my number one this year.
He is my number one too.
I don't think there's anybody, and I think I'm going to include Mystico on this. There's nobody in wrestling that is more important to their promotion right now than Skywalker is to Dragongate. And when you factor in the idea, or the fact rather, that yes, the economy is severely depressed, but Dragongate has bounced back better than others. I feel very comfortable saying they are a company with a bigger fan base than Noah, and just by a hair, All Japan right now. And the Joshi scene has gone up in flames, so I don't know where people stand there, but I've always believed that Dragongate was bigger than Stardom, and I've always felt very comfortable saying that. So we're talking about the biggest star in the number 2 promotion in Japan. He matters more to that promotion than anybody else in the world does to their promotion. And I just can't imagine not having him at 1.
Yeah, you look at the 5 parts of the rubric and accomplishments. He has done everything, and Dragon Gate 1 can already do at his age. His drawing ability has been strong enough that they trusted him both as a draw, as a babyface, and as a heel. And one can argue that at times he's been the number 1 draw as a heel, which is a very rare and special thing within Dragongate. And I think that the whole entire wildness about it is we've not really seen his monster babyface run, because it's in the offing. He was not the wrestler 3 years ago that he is now. He would not, that masquerade babyface run, as strong as it was in ring, will always have its dings. And I think that you look potentially at what a now babyface Shun Skywalker can do and can be, and that is exactly the figure that I think will lead the company over the next 5 years at the very least. And when I look at that and you're comparing him to the other top candidates, I mean, the Kaito Kiyomiya is the closest thing to him, I feel like, and that is Kiyomiya after being jobbed out for a pursuit of salarymen, and he's dealing with like that thing coming up to it, and it just it's so hard for me to even consider anyone else's candidacy when someone goes across all 5 categories as well as Skywalker does. He has to be.
I think you said the most important thing there is, I think you and I would both agree that we're witnessing in the confines of Dragongate a historically great heel run. You know, something that we're going to hold up against Shima and Blood Generation and Yamato and Real Hazard, and, you know, Yamato and Doi and Mad Blanky and early Shingo and Berserk. I think Shun Skywalker and Zebras is on that level. Wait until he turns babyface and wait to see what kind of star he becomes then. And the amazing thing about this heel run is that ever since he turned heel, and that was 2.5 years ago now, the only time we talk about Shun turning babyface is like when we frame it as, oh man, they don't have to turn him babyface for years. It's not one of those heel runs where you're staring at your watch wondering when he's going to turn back. Everybody is living in the moment and salivating over his work. And we know that at some point a face turn is coming, and that is really going to be when I think he blows the barn doors off of wrestling as a whole. But he was my number 1 last year, and I think he's only better this year.
And hey, if you're one of the people who gets annoyed by our Shun Skywalker appreciation, he's 28. There will be only one more year for him in that poll.
I would argue if you get annoyed by our Shun Skywalker appreciation, you should watch Shun Skywalker, because I think that would change your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're not having to revise a 10-point plan about his healing.
Good
at the very
Lord. Least. Good Lord. All right, now this next guy, I don't know what to do with, so you have the floor, Mike.
All right, so Strong Machine J, his age is hidden, but we do kind of know a range it's in. I did a bit of age math. I'm just going to read what I did, like, I think it was last year, and the Open the Voice Gate channel at the award-winning Voices of Wrestling Discord. Jay, we know he's under 30. We do not know his exact year. I think he is somewhere probably between 24 and 26, if you give the point of when he debuted and when Dragongate debuts usually are. Never heard that he was someone who had a big career beforehand, so he's not having the issues of someone like a Yoshioka or Skywalker where he's going to be getting a little iffy. He still, I think, is healthily there, but we don't officially know his birth date, and I don't know. I tried with Jay. I really did, and I just couldn't.
If we knew for sure that he was 28 years old or 29 years old or younger, he would have a spot on my ballot. I feel uncomfortable voting for a guy that we don't have an exact age of.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave him off because of that, but we'll make him 30 and a half if there's any consolation there.
Right. Yeah, no. It's just kind of difficult to decide on him with that. And then speaking of someone that this will be a shorter conversation too, Yoshiki Kato at 27, just not enough career to make it up there for him right now.
When Kato got hurt, I thought he was about to make a giant breakthrough as a wrestler because he's somebody that carries loads of charisma, feels like an obvious star in the making, but didn't have the polish that a usual Dragongate wrestler has, even from their first match on. And I thought he was getting there, and then he got hurt. And so it's a real bummer. He's somebody who I could see making my list next year, but obviously there's not enough there.
Yeah, exactly. Same case for me. And someone who's been out for the last 6 months, this will be the last time he will be a possible candidate, Yuki Yoshioka. I feel like we haven't talked a lot about Yuki Yoshioka.
Well, I can talk a lot about Yoshioka because he is ranked quite handsomely on my ballot just outside the top 10. The big thing that I have taken away from Yoshioka in the 6 months that he's been gone is that I miss Yoshioka.
Yeah, I have a mate, and I feel pretty good at keeping him 8. I like where he is. With the people I have above him, feel pretty strongly should be above him. People I have right below him, I feel pretty highly that they should be below him. He has the business draw. I mean, the savior of that Kobe World Weekend, and when you look at the run he had then with Dreamgate champion, yes, we were still dealing with some attendance restrictions and that, but he moved things clearly in a positive direction. I think, though, that with this being his last time on here, I think he's a top 10 wrestler under the age of 30 in the world. I feel pretty strongly about that.
I do too. I don't think there's much more discussion to be had. I think he's an obvious inclusion. I'm shocked to see some ballots come in that don't have him. Now, look, I get it. He's been hurt for 6 months, but I think a lot of those same people are going to vote for Hayter. I am somebody who I voted for Hayter last year. I actually knocked her off this year, but I really like and respect her work. Bandito's another one. Bandito, just, to share, Bandito's inside my top 10. I actually think we've hit a point where our bubble specifically really underrates Bandito from every aspect. Bandito has been out for the year too. So I've got Bandito in my top 10. I've got Yoshioka just outside my top 10. And those two people have been hurt for quite some time now.
Yeah, Bandito did not.
I wrote, there's a few blurbs that I've written so far. I really like my Bandito blurb. I think I spell out his candidacy there more so than I will here, because there's a few other names I want to hit here outside of Dragongate specific.
Yeah, let's do it.
But let's go to the Glate section real quick. Let me list off these names. You tell me if you voted for any of them. SP Kento, Takuma Fujiwara, L. Lindemann, Kaito Ishida, Takahiro Yamamura.
I voted for exactly one of them. Take a guess who it is.
I'm assuming it's L. Lindemann.
That is correct.
Now, I guess I have to double check real quick to make sure that Ishida and Yamamura are eligible, because I wrote them down, but they are. Yeah, Ishida's 28, and I think Yamamura is the same age. So you voted for Lindemann. I voted for Lindemann as well. Yamamura ended up being one of my last cuts. Kento was a tier before that. Ishida was my 30 last year, never considered him this year, and I can't believe it, but Takuma Fujiwara is just not even in the ballpark of consideration at this point. So I had Linda, last year I had him at number 8. I had him inside my top 10. This year he's bumped down to about 14, 15, 16. He's in that range. My blurb for him this year will be roughly similar to what I wrote last year, which is that the existence of Glate is justified by the fact that it gives L. Lindemann main event matches.
Yeah, I mean, he's been consistently the best thing in that promotion through its entire existence. A shame that the Hayato Tamura match wasn't that great, but I think that's more on Tamura than it is him. My thought process, Yamamura, it's going to be. I'm one of the people that I just that's just going to be a hump for me that I'm not going to get over.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't say I've gotten over it, but I'm
you're
disturbed. Go ahead.
You're better about it than I am. I just can't. I think some of the most exploitative things, and yeah, he has his own life, but yeah, I just think he's a walking time bomb.
It makes me super uncomfortable. I just can't believe how good he still is. That's the thing. It's just like, if he sucked, I would be much more vocal about it. I would talk about how dangerous it is. But he's really good.
But isn't that worse, that he's really good and he's being exploited?
I would say you're probably right. I have no argument against that. If this were a 35 under 30, he would probably be on my list.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The thing Takuma Fujiwara needs to do is disappear, go train with Czech, with Skida for 6 months and re-debut under a mask and not acknowledge he's Takuma Fujiwara. SB Kento, boy, whenever I see him in Glate, I think he looks like a kid, when that was never really weirdly a case in Dragongate.
No, he had the charisma of like a 35-year-old man, and I mean that as a compliment because he was 20.
Yeah, now he feels like a college kid, and he kind of looks like him too.
I mean, if Kobe World 2024 is going to be your first Dragongate show, and then you're like, oh, this is cool, let me check out this other promotion. Oh, these guys used to be in Dragongate. Let me give Glade a watch. The amount of time and effort it would take into explaining what those guys were 2 years ago and what they are now, it would be an hour-long conversation.
Right, yeah. Ishida, for the reasons you've listed, I'm with you on that.
I mean, Ishida doesn't even wrestle anymore. He only works in Glate.
Yeah. I mean, like, the unique person I feel like that I want to talk about, because I want to see what he gets back to, is going to be Takeshi Matani. I mean, he's the one that I'm intrigued with what his position might be, because Lindemann, I have him in the low 20s, and that's kind of where his ceiling is. Czech, I'm intrigued by the future for Czech. It's just hard to put him on a list like this until he comes back and we see what he's doing. Right now, I'm watching a video of him training in Shanghai, and weirdly compelling.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Czech. I think he's awesome. I didn't consider him once for this list, but talk to me next year. I'd love to include him.
Yeah, I would like to get 2 G something representations here, but those two are those for me. So
let me ask you real quick about Lindemann. Yeah. Just confirm my confirmation bias here.
Oh,
if Lindemann went full-time to All Japan, or full-time to Noah, or full-time to New Japan, or back to Dragongate, is there any doubt that he would succeed wherever they put him?
No. Yeah. I think that the one thing about, like, Glade's kind of been left out of the cold and everything over the last few months. Like, the one big thing is, like, El Lindemann and Best of the Super Juniors feels like a loss. Like, I feel like El Lindemann should be someone who should be in those kinds of.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, look, nothing makes your blood boil more than United Japan, and I don't understand why, but I do think
it's useless. it might as well be just a giant money funneling scheme from the Japanese government to Tadaki Kadani in order to run his own wrestling commission that doesn't draw.
Angry. I don't know why, because that's the thing, is that it doesn't draw. So who cares?
And the one guy whose idea this is fucked off to go be a governor of Ishikawa Prefecture. So Hiroshi Hase is the person we all should be going why is this happening?
Oh God, I love it. It makes you so mad.
But Dragongate thought it was more useful for them to go wrestle and do a fan tour in Okinawa than go participate.
Because those guys are going to make so much more money doing that.
But I mean, they're moving to a bigger building in Okinawa next year.
Oh my God, I love it.
You didn't hear that, right?
No, I did not hear that.
Yeah. I think they think that the Naha Tabukanansen, where they've the building that has the chandelier.
Yeah.
I think they're about done bothering with that anymore.
Wow.
I mean, I would love to have been. I was in New York last week, but I was I go traveling to Okinawa. I wish I was in Okinawa. I've gone to Okinawa last week.
Yeah, I would love to be at Okinawa. I would be so happy.
Case,
with all the shit I have going on in my life, if I was in Okinawa right now, it'd be great.
Brother, I hear you there. Who would you? I feel bad now because I would be the person that would be the asshole to be like, can I get Sahara to be my favorite wrestler, so to bring him down here for?
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely like, if I pay extra, can you guys bring Shisa on this trip? Like, I know he's doing World, but like, he's probably got some people that can work at his taco shop, right? Like, you can bring Shisa down here for a little bit.
Yeah, just keep him off Twitter.
No kidding. My point on United Japan real quick was the biggest news story to come out of this is that they included Dragongate over Glate, which I think is really notable because, you know, they have the awkward Forced DDT show a year after they have the Forced All Japan show. There's not going to be a relationship with Noah there unless something drastically changes. They seem to lose the New Japan battle because, you know,
everyone chose Dragongate.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Lindemann worked Super Juniors and there was the year where Shima and T-Hawk were doing the trios matches and Shima was in New Japan Cup, I would have expected by 2024 for those guys to be semi-full-time New Japan. I thought that was the exit ramp there, and it didn't happen. And so they are running out of allies, and now you see Shima back in Mexico, and it's not an accident. You know, Ashita doesn't wrestle. He has nowhere to go.
Yeah, I mean, look at now my eyebrow is raised about what happens with the whole WWE thing, because I could very, very easily see Glate be like, "Hey, we want to be a part of this too," you know.
But you have a weird thing there where Akira Tozawa
will not work there.
It's going to be very vocal about not doing that.
Yeah, Akira Tozawa will not work that company. So,
and it would be fascinating if he did, but I don't think he's going to. Can I throw some other names at you?
Yeah. We've got some other guys here. I think the big one that we both wanted to kind of talk about. Should we have the Kiyomiya conversation?
We should, because I'll start. I did not vote for Kaito Kiyomiya last year. I just couldn't be talked into it. I was always a little bit lower on him historically than other people were, but you know, we're coming out of a Muto run, you know, at this time last year, and Noah felt ice cold, and he felt ice cold, and I just wasn't a fan at all. And, you know, right now, Kiyomiya is my number 2 behind Shun Skywalker. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. I think the Gabe Kidd match is a top 10 match so far this year. I've never done a 180 on a wrestler the way that I have Kiyomiya from 2017 to 2023 compared to where I rank him now in 2024.
Yeah, he is my number 2 as well. The nice thing about this kind of poll is that we can immediately just wipe off the damage that Nosawa Rongai and Muto did with him, you know? Because he is that good. That's the frustrating thing. And he's able to do so many things in so many different promotions at this point. Like, he's able to do great Dragon System sprint wrestling, and then you have absolute bloodbaths like the Gabe Kidd match. Yeah, that I was 4 3/4 on Kiyomiya and Kidd. That ruled. Like, that was one of my
fantastic.
Favorite. It was my favorite match that I saw out of anything over the last week.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No, I mean, he's incredible, and I don't know if this is something that will make people angry, but I credit his turnaround with New Japan and Dragongate, and specifically New Japan. I don't want to make this seem like it's a Dragongate thing, but he found confidence by working New Japan. I watched his matches in the Tag League last year because I was so intrigued by what he was doing, and I never watched the Tag League. But I made sure to sit down and watch Kiyomiya and Oiwa together because I thought they were a phenomenal team. I've got Oiwa on my list towards the bottom there as well. But Kiyomiya, I mean, didn't rank him last year, felt pretty defiant about it, felt pretty confident about it, and he is shot up to my number 2. It's a shame Noah's houses aren't better because he is having what should be recognized as a Flair Thez type year. He just doesn't have the box office stuff to back it up in any legitimate way.
And that's the chicken and the egg conversation where I don't know what actually would spike for them anymore. Like, maybe bringing in AJ Styles and being basically told by Abema, hey, WWE is on our networks and isn't doing well. We need you to boost this up here because we're bringing them on tour. Maybe that's the thing that kind of tricks people into like the box office thing. But the frustrating thing is that they kept on trying to get him stardom by proxy, and everyone says it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Why are you ruining this for this kid? And he's able to get through it relatively unscathed. But I mean, his star power is just like he didn't get anything out of it, and it was just repeating everything everyone said, that it took the New Japan work for it to happen, even though the real business never really happened for him there, you know?
Absolutely. So I've got him at number 2. It's a great story. My only complaint with him is that he does the Shining Wizard. I wish he would drop that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Let me ask you, pivoting here, can I ask you to name a woman, and specifically the women that you have on your list?
Yeah, so I have Utami Hayashishita at 4, Miyu Yamashita at 7, Azumi I have really high. I have her at 9. Toni Storm, I had her at, I don't have her kind of cemented though. She's in that 10 range along with Jamie Hayter and then Mizuki and Starlight.
Okay, I have Toni Storm, and then I have another woman on my list, and this is gonna deter straight away from like a Dragon System conversation. There's no tie-in here, but I kind of want to have this conversation.
Oh, please go ahead.
So 27 I have Flamita, 29 I have Hyo. Now I do. 28 I have Anna Jay. And
okay, all right, yeah.
My question to you is, Anna Jay the single greatest talent development story that AEW has in their history?
Ty Conti. I'm sorry, Ty Mello.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't think Mello has the resume that Anna Jay does at this point. I understand that answer. I have no argument there. I think Jay is a little bit stronger because she came in having, worked like 10 matches before she got into AEW, and she continues to get better. Like, I kind of like enjoy her TV matches now. I think she's had a few really great moments historically. She's carved out a niche like Chuck Taylor as a great plunder brawler, and I think she's only going to get better. I would imagine she'll be doing Stardom sooner rather than later, and when she comes back from Stardom, I expect her to be pretty good. And you and I both know I was a huge fan of, Lee Johnson and Nick Camarado, and I was even like, yeah, Brock Anderson, bring him in, let me see what he's got. And none of those guys have really developed, and it's not that Anna Jay is this otherworldly worker, but I think she's gotten so much better, and I think she can continue to get better. I think it's really important that Anna Jay is on this list because she is, to me, the single greatest talent development story that AEW has in their history.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to push back on that because I have Daniel Garcia on my list, but I can't say that he's really developed anything.
No, I mean, he's gotten better, but he's, we knew who Daniel Garcia was when he got signed.
Jack Perry got better because he was not in AEW for that time period. Mm-hmm. So I think that, it's weird, right? Because you get the indie star signings, and then you had these Monster Factory. I forget what he used to call what
Nightmare Factory.
Yeah, Nightmare Factory. I forget what QT called it beforehand, but you had like these kids that come out of Georgia, and if you look at it, she is the success story out of all of them. So I see that it's just not a person that would have made my list. I know.
I think Hobbs is the other argument there, but I kind of worry about Hobbs taking the next step. I worry that we've seen the best of him, and the knee injury that he suffered certainly doesn't help things.
Right. Yeah. And just that there's a major issue with this promotion, like really putting people in underneath pretty stiff ceilings that it really, the company's not really shown a willingness to get people out of the slot unless they just you have to become just overwhelmingly over at a degree like Orange Cassidy did in order to do so. And that lane and like that kind of skill set just does not seem to be something that Powerhouse Hobbs is able to do. You know what I mean?
and famous Rover quote, because I think he's right. You know, sometimes in AEW, the worst thing that can happen to you is that you get over, because then they just tinker with everything and you get fed to the wrong guys, and it's a real bummer. And I've said this before. One of the blurbs I really like that I wrote is on Titus Alexander, because I voted for Titus last year, and had he not found his way into Noah, I would have guessed that he would have fallen off. But I really like the work that he's doing in Noah. And the exciting thing is that this is a guy who is not a product of the New Japan dojo system, but is an indie wrestler that is essentially going to finishing school in Japan. And we've now seen a full generation of wrestlers that aren't Shima approved or that aren't Yoshinari Ogawa approved, and wrestling is worse off for it. And AEW has a real issue with taking guys that are at one level where they are naturally talented and making more of them than what they were when they first got their hands on. You know, Action Andretti should be a much bigger star and should be a much better wrestler given the raw tools that he has, but they can't seem to figure that out. And the more time goes on and the less Dragongate tours there are, and the less Noah tours there are, and the less DDT tours there are, and the more there is of New Japan finding these guys on the outskirts of wrestling and bring them into their system, I think the worse it's going to be for American talent development, because where would we be in the 2000s and 2010s without Shima and Ogawa and guys like that? And now we're seeing it. You know, we are worse off as a result. Titus Alexander is a great guy who didn't go to national TV. He went to Japan, and I think has become a much better wrestler as a result. I would expect the same thing with Anna Jay, and I think, you know, your Lee Johnsons of the world are suffering because they're not developing in AEW, and there's also not a window for them to go to Japan.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I ended up with Nick Wayne, Daniel Garcia, Jack Perry, and MJF as my only Americans on this list. And it's a situation where it's very hard to like look at them and say like any of those things and any of their pushes or anything related to anything that happened in AEW and any development that happened within being written for TV by Tony Khan. Like that is a major black mark I look at that promotion with now.
I'm completely with you. Last group of guys I want to talk about real quick. Who do you have from CMLL on your ballot?
I feel like that this is a scenario, whereas I have a lot more Joshi on my ballot. I have Atlantis Jr., and he is my CMLL guy on my ballot.
Okay, I've got Dorada, I've got Atlantis Jr., I've got Zandokan Jr., and my number 30 guy, and this is the guy I was referencing earlier, it's a little bit like getting excited for a second-round pick in the NBA draft where, you know, for those that don't know, there's only 2 rounds. Do you know about this guy? And I have pulled up a Cubs fan tweet with the correct pronunciation, or at least the assumed correct pronunciation of this guy's name, because it is very hard to say. Chelua, which is Xelhua. Do you know about this guy?
The name sounds vaguely familiar because I know just because of how unique it's pronounced, right?
Yeah. And how unique it looks. So he was one of their big standout guys when they did the regional tournament they do every year. So you got to check this guy out. I'll send you some matches. He's a Yave guy. Yeah. He's a Yave guy, and he's 20 years old, and he's super exciting. And this might be one where a year from now, I'm going to look back and go like, oh, that's weird that I had him anywhere near my ballot. But I make a point of watching everything that he does that airs, and I think he's really exciting because nobody in wrestling is really working the way that he is right now. He's doing your traditional Yave stuff, but he's got some new wrinkles on it. And this is a guy that, quite honestly, I could see becoming a much bigger star. You know, I think the career that Hechicero has had could be something that this guy works his way into. So not only do I like him as a wrestler, but I like his potential and I like his potential star power. And so I've got him at 30. Again, his name is Chalua, which is Xelhua. He's been working a lot of Arena Mexico, like opening matches or match number 2s. He just had a cool lightning match at the start of June. I like this guy a lot. He's my number 30 this year.
I'm gonna have to check him out for sure.
I think you specifically would really like him.
Yeah, and it's really for me with like CMLL, like Zadokan Jr. I did like him with when I've seen him.
Yeah, I wish he would spend more time in Japan. I think he could get crazy over in New Japan.
It's the kind of thing that I know Cubs hates hearing, but if he was in Japan more, he probably would have made my list in that regard. And Mascara Dorada was a late cut.
Interesting. I've got Dorada in my top 10. I wrote a very feisty Dorada blurb because I feel like for some reason people have turned against him, and I feel like we all need to pump the brakes and go back in the other direction. I'm not sure why the anti-Dorada brigade is as loud as they are. I feel like that's a guy who is a star, is going to be a bigger star, and is a phenomenal pro wrestler. I'm very surprised that people have turned against him the way that they have.
Yeah, that's kind of like, I'm going to be real interested in seeing how, because I feel like Dorada might end up being the CMLL equivalent of where someone might put Jack Kamei on the list.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like a couple promotions have people like that. They're just like, oh, I'm going to feel very strongly about this person. Like if you focus in other like regions, you probably have Luke Jacobs on your list, you know? And I kind of view Dorada and Kamei as those similar kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, to your point there, I mean, there's some U.S. indie guys that I like. I'm higher on the U.S. indies than I have been in a few years because, luckily some people are sending me some stuff that I'm really enjoying. But there's no one outside of like maybe Calvin Tankman, and that's really more reputation than anything at this point, than any work he's done over the last year, that I'm like, I need this U.S. indie guy on the ballot. They're not there, but there's names out there, and maybe in the next year they develop.
Yeah, like Marcus Mathers.
Mathers was one that I had down on my short list that didn't make it.
I feel like personally for me, Alec Price has hit a plateau that he could have made the list in past years, maybe, but not this year, and not like the amount of output he did. Fletcher was a late cut for me too.
Fletcher made mine. I like him, and I like the way he wrestles on TV. So I've got Fletcher in there. My final comment for you before we go is that thank God when we do this next year, Fuminori Abe will be 30 years old because we have to put him on there. I love Abe. He's an excellent pro wrestler. I just don't. He is not the purpose of this assignment, And I'm just like, oh God, put him at 20 and let's just move on. Like, I just don't. He doesn't fit in with this list at all. His vibe doesn't fit in with his list at all.
He wrestles functionally a dead style.
Again, he's great at it, but I am annoyed that he is taking up a spot this year because there are other cooler names that could be on there. But when I submit my ballot, it's like, what am I not going to put Fuminori Abe on there? Thank God he will be 30 next year.
Case, you can very easily not put him on there. I didn't.
I gotta put him on there.
No, you don't.
He has
30 votes
great.
that are yours. That are yours and yours alone. If you want to go and waste one on someone doing a dead style who's been around forever and has kind of just hit this plateau and is not going to go past that, go right ahead.
Look, I would much rather put Ryuya Matafusa from Osaka Pro on my ballot, but I can't look you in the eyes and tell you that he's a better wrestler than Fuminori Abe. So I'm going to have to stick with Abe. If Abe was just working like Big Japan, I wouldn't do it, but his All Japan stuff is entertaining enough to where it's like, fine, I guess he is a real wrestler. I guess we're going to have to count him. But I'm not into it. I am going to celebrate his 30th birthday harder than he will.
Allow me to be like the Victorian dandy and just go like, no, I don't have to. I don't have. Father, you can't make me have Fuminori Abe if you want. I am my own man. I will have Yuki Ueno on my list instead.
Abe and Vikingo are the two where I'm just like, ugh, I don't have any strong feelings for these guys, but I guess they have to be on there.
And I feel like for people like Abe and Vikingo, like you talk about potential, where do they go?
Well, Vikingo could become a massive American star. I literally cannot rule that out. I think there is all the potential in the world, which is why I have Bandito at 9, because I think Bandito, again, the worst thing that can happen to you in AEW is that you become over. But Bandito has a pipeline to main event status that to me is not unrealistic. Vikingo has that as well. I just happen to like Bandito way more than I like Vikingo.
I just look at the landscape and I don't see that path for them just because of where AEW is and how they kind of focus on it. Like the fact that they're going to be doing these 6 weeks in Arlington, Texas, and they haven't been like, guess who's going to be here every week? It's Mystico.
Yeah.
That just like, if that's the lane that you're proposing, it's like, oh, you're going to become over in AEW. I can't subscribe to that with the way that they don't market luchadors towards their primary fan base. I think it's wild, the fact that they have been doing like this Roosh push, and it's like in places where like you bring in Roosh because Roosh can really draw, and I like it's just constant like missteps with luchadors that make me think that realm and that ceiling is not there for them. That we think it's there, but like I think we have enough track record here of Tony Khan that we have to call a horse a horse.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I do think, and look, maybe the fan base has turned over to a point where this won't be true anymore. Bandito is over. I mean, I think he is really over in the building, and
he's over in every building. I feel like
that's
shows
the
up
thing.
In.
I hold out a lot of hope for him as a potential future star, but I think that is all I have to say on 30 Under 30. I will post my ballot in full as soon as I'm done with it. You have heard most of the names right now, but I'm going to shuffle the order a little bit more, and I will post my ballot in full on Twitter and on the Discord when the time comes.
Yeah, the positions that I feel very strongly about are pretty cemented. I will have captions that I'll write, and if they aren't used, I'll just publish them. But yeah, no, this is fun. I'm glad that we did this week, Case, because when we look at the schedule for Dragongate for the next week, it's they are in Chiba this Friday. They have 2 shows in Saitama Saturday and Sunday. And then they have Miyagi. They're in Sendai Sunfesta for Ryu Fuda's homecoming show. We'll see if any of those matches come out, but we're not going to be talking about that next week, Case, because it is time for a June rewind and rewatch. We did kind of allude to it before, but do we want to give a little bit more of a hint about it, or are we going to drop it on them?
No, so we'll say outright, because I'll make this footage available when the episode comes out, but we are going to do... We are going to do the June 2014 Dragongate TV that never made its way to Dailymotion or any Google Drive that I'm in, or has been accessible up until just a few months ago. And I'm going to pull up the city here to confirm. This is June 7th and June 8th from Sapporo Tenshin Hall, which is the old Hokkaido stop that they would have. And the big thing here is this BB Hulk versus Naruki Doi Lumberjack death match. Again, I've been waiting 10 years now to watch this set of TV, and I never had it in my hands until a few months ago when Mike sent it my way. And I have resisted watching it so that we could do it in June of this year, which we are now at. So next week, we're going to review those episodes of TV. Super Shisa versus Kagetora, BB Hulk versus KZ, Monster Express versus the Millennials, and then again, that Naruki Doi versus BB Hulk Lumberjack match. That is coming to your feeds next week.
Get into it. And if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at Open VoiceGate for the podcast. Cases at _in_your_case. I'm at Fujiheya. If you also want to reach out to us, we are in that Voices of Wrestling Discord, either in the Dragongate channel or in the Open the VoiceGate show-specific channel as well. But that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back with you next time I'm going to open the voice gate. Take care, everyone.
Hello, Voices of Wrestling listener. Dave Ryan here. Have you ever wondered to yourself how many hidden gems are hidden away inside the last years of World Championship Wrestling? Have you ever asked yourself how many tenuous gags can be made about the name Mike Enos? And have you ever thought about what it sounds like for two Irishmen to interpret a very chaotic company through its B show? The answers to all this and more are just a click away. Check out Days of Thunder every second Thursday on the Voices of Wrestling podcast network.
Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.